we approach a lot of these things, a lot of these interactions with assumptions, and it's human nature. You wouldn't be a human being if you didn't. But when you meet somebody out in the world, you bring a lot of assumptions with you, okay? And those assumptions include a kind of unwritten understanding that when you crack a joke, they're going to understand it on some level. And we've all felt that feeling of making a joke, of using humor and having it land with a thud and it not working because they don't get it. And it kind of puts you in a bad place, especially in our world where everything's politically correct and you can offend somebody and it can impact your career. So be careful of those assumptions. And if you are reading somebody that they're not understanding the subtle meanings behind what you're trying to say, or you're hinting at something and they're not getting it, it may be this. It may be that they're on the spectrum, and these types of things are very, very challenging for them. All right, just our presence, our uniform, the way we approach things, the badge on our shirt, our demeanor, we use that a lot. We tap into that bearing that we have as police officers in the uniform, in the police car, and all these things. And if you think about it for a little while, you dip into that a lot. When you show up at a scene, it's almost understood by everybody that you are a person of authority, that you have the power to arrest, that you can write with one swipe of your pen, you can write a motor vehicle ticket that is going to cost them money. All of this is understood, and it's kind of built into the conversation that we have. With somebody on the spectrum, none of that's guaranteed. If you walk into my house and you're wearing a badge and a gun, all that badge is to my son is something shiny he wants to play with and check out. And all that gun is on your hip is maybe a potential toy he can grab and play with. Okay, you have to understand that. Now, we teach him, we build in lessons about police officers and how you're an authority figure, but it's not automatic. They don't learn it automatically just through the course of living in a way that a neurotypical individual does. And you should not approach these situations assuming that it's understood, okay, because it'll get you in trouble. Like I said, our guys will laugh when they're stressed. You'll see this laughter pop out. It's not disrespect. It's not a lack of respect for your authority or position. It's a legitimate thing that happens during stressful encounters for people on the spectrum. And to assume otherwise will get you into trouble. All right? Don't interpret this as, oh, this person's he's being disrespectful. It's time for me to teach him a lesson. If that kind of mindset will get you into trouble with these individuals. So be careful. Be careful what you do, and be careful how you act, okay? Because there might be something like this at play, and to learn afterwards that individual was on the spectrum and didn't understand what you were doing after you took some action, like arresting them, it's going to be bad news for you. So don't do it. Be careful. All right. Our guys will appear disinterested or bored or distracted while you're talking to them, and human nature will be to interpret that as rude or lacking respect, and you'll feel a certain way. Try to resist that. It's not personal. Eye contact for our guys on the spectrum is challenging. Individuals report to experts and doctors that sometimes making eye contact with somebody and holding it causes physical pain. And it goes back to this sensory component again, that we put out so much information and so much stimulus from our faces that when they look us in the eye, they're bombarded with this sensory information, and it actually hurts. All right. So if you're interviewing somebody or talking to somebody, or you're dealing with a car stop and you're trying to get information, they teach us in the police academy that not looking in the eye, not making eye contact, is a sign of deception. You're lying to me. You're withholding something. With somebody on the spectrum, that's not true. They are just trying to manage that encounter and be as respectful as they can, all the while trying to filter out sensory stimuli that's getting in the way of them understanding what you're trying to say to them. So you have to understand that, and you can't act on these assumptions. And it's challenging because a lot of times it goes against our instincts as officers. And I get that, and I'm sympathetic towards it, but it's still something you have to keep in your mind, that the person you're interviewing who's not looking you in the eye, or is looking away, or looking down, or closing his eyes, or fiddling with a item in his hands, what they're actually doing, it's actually a sign of respect, because what they're doing is they're trying to filter out this extraneous stimulus so they can focus on the words that you're giving them, and the directions and commands you're giving them. They're trying to focus. They just need help, and that's one of the ways they filter out this stimulus. Okay, so just understand that. At the same time, give them time to interpret, to understand, and to digest what you're saying. Everything should be expanded in length of time. So if you have a car stop and somebody, and you have signs, or they tell you that they're on the spectrum, everything has to slow down. Okay, you tell them, give you their license, registration. You have to give them more time than is often comfortable for us as cops. It takes more time for them to process and act on that kind of direction than it does the neurotypical person. So give them time, and be patient, and practice patience. Actively practice it. Okay. Another assumption that we make that will get us in trouble a lot of times is, and I kind of covered this before with a first aid call. If you get at the scene of an accident and you are in your uniform, or you're a fire official and you're wearing your protective gear, or an EMS officer is wearing the jumpsuits or the jacket, one of the assumptions we approach that call is that the person we're trying to treat, the victim of that incident, understands we're there to help, understands that we're the good guys, and we're there to give them aid, to bring them to the hospital, to help them. That assumption may not apply if that individual is on the spectrum. That uniform, that understanding that, wow, I just had an accident, somebody's here to help me, this person has medical training, they're going to bring me to a doctor. None of that is safe to assume if that individual is on the spectrum. You may be perceived as a threat, as somebody's there to hurt them. You may just be another form of stimulation, another form of anxiety and stress that is already at a fever pitch in their mind. Okay, so be careful, and don't take it personally if they push you away, or don't let you take their pulse, or they just want to be left alone, or they act in a way where you don't understand. Don't they understand? I'm here to help them. I'm a police officer. They don't get this. No, they may not get it. Okay, you may be perceived in a completely different way than you are assuming that 9 times out of 10 you are perceived. So be cognizant of that, and approach it in a way where, okay, how can I get through this this situation? Do what I got to do. Treat this individual. How do I do this if they're not being compliant? Well, you got to take some steps backwards, and it may be reducing all the lights and sirens, getting as many people out of the way as possible. Have one individual interact with them, talk to them calmly, let them understand you're there to help. Let them and walk them through it at a very, very basic level to get done what you need to get done. All right, and don't jump to, well, they just should assume that I'm here to help and what's going on. And no, you got to take it slower than that. All right, a lot of times. And again, another assumption is when you're giving questions, when you're saying, do you have any numbness or tingling, we assume that individual, if they're an adult, understands what that means and understands why it's important that they tell us. That all of those are off the table if that individual is on the spectrum. So you have to rely more on your palpable, tangible assessments with these individuals. Okay, look for bluing and blue, tinge to the fingertips, or blanching, or all these things that they teach us in our training to look for, as opposed to just questions and answers. Okay, because that's not reliable if those individuals are on the spectrum.